One organization that helps clean the water is the Environmental Protection Agency.
A bunch of water companies. I don't know any names.
Some big place with a bunch of initials.
Orsanco is an interstate agency that was created by a compact in 1948 in Cincinnati. The Interstate Compact is a legal commitment among the 8 states to work together to take and implement a regional approach to resolve problems with interstate water pollution in the Ohio Valley. Orsanco actually has regulatory authority, and that regulatory authority, which is focused on discharges and setting quality for wastewater discharges, is applicable to interstate streams in this district or in this drainage area. Most principally, our efforts have been focused on the Ohio River and the lower reaches of the larger tributaries that drain to the Ohio. Orsanco's job is not to go out in the moon suits, if you will, and clean up the contamination. We are the notification people, and we're the monitoring people. How do we learn about spills that occur? You'll have what might be termed citizen spottings and reports. We can have spills that occur from tank farms, or a barge passing by, or an industrial installation, or a mishap at a community sewage treatment plant, where they know what's happened and they will obviously report, which they're obligated to do. We operate what we call our spills detection system. There's 15 points along the river and a couple of tributaries, and we monitor the river at least once a day. The Ohio River is a vitally important resource to the nation because of the commerce, because of the some 5 million people that rely on it daily for their drinking water, because of the scope of the drainage area, the economic generator that the Ohio River is.
Dirt, salt, pollution.
Probably toxic waste. Sometimes sewage, if it rains heavily and the sewage plant can't get to it.
When it rains, it takes all the garbage that's on the ground and flows into the river.
I coordinate a hands-on water quality testing program for students who live in the Ohio River watershed, and it's all focused aboard our P.A. Denny River Education Center. It's on a restored, authentic stern wheel paddle boat that we've converted into a fully functioning lab. When students are learning about the water and actually on the water, they can physically see how they use the resource, how plants, animals use the resource. Being immersed in what they're studying makes all the difference in the world because it helps foster those emotional connections that make the Ohio River valuable in their eyes and get them engaged into protecting it. Point source pollution is any source of pollution where we can easily and distinctively trace its source. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, most of the pollution in the Ohio River and in a lot of our watersheds locally come from non-point sources as opposed to point sources. A lot of students come into our program thinking all the pollution in our waterways comes from these big factories belching smoke out with funky stuff coming out of the end of a pipe, and the reality of it is it's more of our activities on land that affect water quality. Well, I think one of the first things students need to do once they're invested is to talk to their parents. I think nowadays, because of all the wonderful environmental education programs we have in and beyond the tri-state area, students are becoming more and more savvy regarding water quality issues and how they affect water quality in their communities. And I think it's a really good role for them to kind of bridge that gap and talk to their parents and families about things that they can start doing, you know, just on a daily basis to control their impact on their environment and on the water quality resources, not only in their backyard, but of course the Ohio River as well.
Yes, I care about clean water.
Yes, I do care about clean water.
As long as I'm using it, yeah.
Yes, I do. I love water.
I know if I want clean water, my kids in the future will want clean water.
We started the Saturday Stream Snapshot, which is a citizen volunteer water quality monitoring program, and our idea was to get people sampling in the lower Little Miami watersheds, particularly in places where they'd never collected any water samples, so that we could get a good picture of what was going on with the water quality in the lower Little Miami. And the idea behind it was to have high quality data.
It involves volunteer citizens collecting water samples from streams near their homes. And then they take those samples to collecting spots And then a group of volunteers at a laboratory in Loveland, next to the Little Miami River, analyzes the samples for a variety of parameters, always the same parameters. And that way you get a snapshot of the stream's health on the day that you took that sample. And then they keep an electronic database for sake of comparison from month to month and from year to year.
Surprisingly, a lot of people use our data for a variety of things, and we're really honored that Ohio EPA came to us. They're doing a total maximum daily load study in the lower Little Miami River, and they're using our data, which is really quite something. Our data has been used recently by the Little Miami River Partnership to develop a watershed action plan for the lower Little Miami. In addition to that, citizens have used it in hearings for wastewater treatment plants. Even officials trying to track down water pollution problems have come to us and used our data. You'd think that it would be the government's job to keep track of our water quality, and it is, but we have a limited amount of tax dollars to go towards monitoring. And in the state of Ohio, individual watersheds like the lower Little Miami are only monitored once every 10 years. A lot of things can happen in a 10-year period, but by having citizens take responsibility for going out and helping us collect this, we can do it cheaper and we get ongoing information. So if there is a problem, we find it quicker and we can do something about it before it becomes a real serious problem.
To an extent, I think other people care about clean water, but some people don't really drink water that often.
Not as much as they should.
Well, no, I hope they do.
They probably don't, but I really think they should.
If we can manage the stormwater, in fact, we are at the same time managing the combined soil overflow problem and the sanitary soil overflow problem. We are trying to manage the stormwater in a more natural way. Usually you'll see that all the stormwater goes into the inlet on the side of the street and it just vanishes somewhere in the pipe. But what we are saying is that the stormwater in natural process should be on the surface and stay there and evaporate, or some of it will go in the ground and the groundwater. And in that way it will be filtered, and when it ends up in the rivers and creeks, it will be much cleaner. So that's what we are doing. We are building up a pretty reasonable program in MSD to manage the stormwater using green infrastructure.
The MSD project was a great opportunity for us to be involved. It was a privilege and kind of an honor to be asked to be involved. We've just finished installing a green roof, the first green roof for MSD here within Hamilton County. And that green roof will provide shelter for the building for a long period of time. It will capture the rainwater and reuse it into the plants. It will provide energy conservation, and it will help the building remain cooler in the summertime and warmer in the wintertime. To the owner of the building, it will reduce the amount of energy, typically by 30 or 40%. From a humidification perspective, if you have rooftop units, they take air off of the roof, and so if the air is cooler, it's moister and richer with oxygen, you can't help but think that the indoor air quality impact is going to be enhanced for the building occupants. From a first cost perspective, a vegetative roof is going to cost more in terms of sheer cost. However, when you begin to look at the economic benefits that are transferred back to that design, both in terms of for that particular owner, but also in the larger macro perspective, a vegetative roof actually becomes more cost effective, significantly more cost effective over the long haul. Typically, once you have the roof system installed and all of the growing media and the plants installed and the plants are well established, it tends to be very low, if almost little or no maintenance at all. If you look at the tipping point here in Cincinnati that has started to help drive the vegetative roofing movement, stormwater is one of those major contributors. Vegetative roofs have a huge impact in terms of stormwater retention and reduction. Here in the city of Cincinnati, we average about 41 inches of rain per year. That's about 3.4 feet of rain. A cubic foot of water is 7.5 gallons. If you look at 3.4 feet of annual rainfall, and that equates to 7.5 gallons per foot, that's about 25.5 gallons of water per square foot of roof area that we have to deal with and divert and treat. A vegetative roof typically will absorb and reduce that water from leaving the site by about 75%. If you take the MSD roof, for example, that roof was only about 3,800 square feet. But if you run the math out, that means every year that roof will divert over 72,000 gallons of water from having to go into our stormwater system. And if you figure on 30 years, that's over 2 million gallons of water that won't have to be absorbed and treated, and money spent ultimately to handle getting the water to the treatment location, and then the cost to treat it, and then the cost to put it back into our waterways.
The federal EPA said that cement and steel was not going to be the solution, that we needed a green approach. And that green approach is to attempt to stop stormwater before it becomes runoff. And we do that, we hope, by people putting cisterns on their downspouts that will hold the water during a rain event and leak it out slowly over the next 3 days. We're hoping that they will put in rain gardens that will collect the runoff water from their driveway and let it infiltrate or evapotranspirate so that it either gets into the groundwater or into the atmosphere but doesn't run off the day of the rainfall.
The Rain Garden project is located at our new Green Acres Art Center. We built a brand new parking lot, and this was a terrific opportunity to try to control the stormwater generated by that parking lot. A rain garden is actually a specialized garden. It's bowl-shaped in general, and it's designed for rainwater and runoff to flow into and be trapped for a period of time, in most cases about 24 hours. Rain garden plants are actually the same plants that you might use in your regular garden, but because rain gardens are kind of a specialized application, you use different plants depending on where you're planting them in the rain garden. The very center of it is wet, so you put plants that will survive wet feet for a while in the center. Then you have intermediate plants that like moister conditions, and then on the edges you put plants that like dry conditions. And so if you put the plant in the right place, you can use almost any variety of plants that you can find at a garden center. Rain gardens can be used in a variety of applications. You can use them in residential areas, you can use them in parks, you can use them in downtown areas, you can use them in businesses, you can use them actually at the parking lots of malls. You just have to design it properly so that it has the right inflow, and you have to design it for overflow in case those conditions arise where you have more rainfall and it fills and overflows. But as long as you use the right design criteria to put it in, you can put one just about anywhere. So in Cincinnati, we're trying to promote the use of rain gardens because we want that water, instead of going to a storm drain, to soak back into the ground where it'll recharge the aquifer, and we can use it to keep our own plants green and also to keep our streams filled with water instead of growing dry. So it's win-win for everybody.
Yes, I waste water.
No.
Yes, we waste water a lot. I don't think I waste water.
Yeah, a lot.
Taking long showers, wasting when washing dishes.
Green building essentially is a building that uses environmentally friendly resources and a process to build a building. Green structures will use less energy, use less water, use less resources, and as a result, they will pollute less and are better for the environment. Green buildings will employ common sense technologies in some respects with water. They'll move the hot water heaters close to the source where they're being used. If hot water heaters are too far away, people will turn the faucet on and run a gallon or two of water until the water gets warm. Infrared sensors and faucets. They'll want little Jimmy or Janie to leave the faucet on when they leave the bathroom, so if they stick their hands under and a sensor turns the water on and automatically turns it off, that'll save waste. Low flow toilets. Toilets use a tremendous amount of water. You can get toilets that use much, much less water than traditional toilets, as well as waterless urinals for men's room. Our homes are similar to buildings. We would want to put in low flow toilets, but we can go beyond that with water restrictors for your shower heads and aerators for your faucets, which will all reduce water but disperse the water differently so you don't notice the reduced water use.
The Civic Garden Center is creating a green learning station, a learning garden that incorporates many design principles that revolve around sustainability, green roof, permeable pavers, alternative energy sources, and a constructed wetlands for sanitary treatment.
The Civic Garden Center will recycle water through this project by collecting water within the stormwater management system in rain barrels and cisterns, and then utilizing that water to take care of the gardens at a later date when we haven't had rain.
It's sort of like an outdoor science lab where we can test ideas, learn about the environment, and look at the importance of water and energy and everything we do in life.
We chose this project primarily because it is part of our mission to be good environmental stewards. And we believe that conservation of water is a huge portion of being a good steward of the environment. We're really hoping that people who visit the site will be inspired to take some of the technology home. And if they do something, if they do just one thing, like add a rain barrel to their landscape, or not use as much water from the tap, or compost, or garden organically, then we're definitely headed in the right direction.
We can stop the polluting. Once I'm done with the water, turning it off. Make sure it's completely cut off.
Turning off the faucet when you're brushing your teeth.
Don't drop anything in the sewers.
Tell people that can make a difference.
Start recycling.
Recycling is taking materials that would otherwise go to a landfill for disposal and sending them through a processing system which separates them and prepares them for manufacturers. Manufacturers then take delivery of these commodities, which usually include glass bottles and jars, plastic number 1 and 2 bottles and jugs, paper products like cereal boxes, junk mail, magazines, things like that. Then the manufacturers will take each item and use it as a raw material to make new and useful products. For our future, it is crucial to start recycling. More than 50% of the items that people throw away today end up in the landfills, and these are items that could have been recycled. Annually, when you use bottled water, if those bottles aren't recycled, it's putting 1.5 million tons of trash back into the landfill. Plastics are made from petroleum, so when you don't recycle those plastic bottles, it takes about 47 million gallons of oil to reproduce new bottles. Everything you put in your recycling bin is made into something new, and when you do that, you're conserving landfill space, you're conserving energy, you're conserving water, and you're doing something very important for the planet. You're conserving our world.
Think about what kind of things you put into the water supply. Maybe changing the types of chemicals you use to clean your home so that you're not putting dangerous chemicals down the toilet. Don't flush medicines and other things down the toilet that are going to the wastewater treatment plant that we don't have technology to treat. Restrict the use of pesticides and fertilizers and other things. Follow the directions. Use them only when you absolutely need them. And then conserve water. The less water we use, the less water we have to treat.
Change personal habits. Research has shown that people can reduce their annual water bill by nearly 30% simply by changing their habits. Doing things like turning off the water when you're brushing your teeth, when you're shaving. Even when you're taking a shower, turn the water on to get wet, turn it off to soap up, turn it on to rinse off. If you use sprinkler systems, make sure you know how to turn off the timer or make sure at least the water is falling on your lawn and not on your driveway. When you run a load of dishes or laundry, make sure you only run it when it's full. Also, put cold water in the refrigerator. Don't sit there and let the tap water run to get it cold. Put it in a pitcher, put it in the refrigerator.
Simple things on a day-to-day basis. You know, if you're doing laundry, a lot of times in the Cincinnati area during wet weather events, we have a lot of combined sewer overflows. So even as something as simple as, hey, maybe I shouldn't do laundry while it's currently raining. And even beyond that, everyday things around the house. If you're washing your car, wash your car in the grass. Minimize any sort of stormwater runoff from your house.
Citizens should really care about clean water because it is liquid gold. 90% of our bodies are water. We can't live a day without it, and we need to have a clean, safe water supply. So water's at the heart of our entire economy, our entire life, and our entire health. And having a clean, safe supply is really essential.
Water is more valuable than oil. Water is more valuable than coal. Water is more valuable than many resources we have. Probably the most valuable natural resource on the planet is water.